100 years of the Phoenix Police Reserves. It's remarkable. Welcome to our Centennial celebration. I'm Derek Hall, President and CEO of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and proud to say that I became an inaugural member of our board, the foundation board, which was created in 2007, and in 2017 I became the board president, and am very proud of our work. We have a few of our board members here, so we'll make sure that they get around to meet you and say hi and thank you, and we're certainly proud to be affiliated and associated with you. We have some prestigious guests who are here today, and we'll mention a few of them. Some are not quite here yet, but we'll still mention them by name because they will be here. A few are running late. We have the Honorable Greg Stanton, Mayor of Phoenix. We will hear from him in a few minutes. The Honorable Deborah Stark, Councilwoman, District 3. We're expecting the Honorable Daniel Valenzuela, Councilman from District 5. We're also expecting the Honorable Michael Nowakowski, Councilman from District 7. Mr. Ed Zerker, City Manager. Mr. Milton Dohoney Jr., Assistant City Manager. Our wonderful Police Chief, Jerry Williams, who you'll be hearing from as well. Executive Assistant Police Chief, Mike Kurtenbach. And Assistant Police Chiefs, Mary Roberts. Sandra Renteria. Jim Burgett. John Collins. Louis Tovar, and Scott Finnicle. You'll be hearing from Scott as well, obviously. Well, you saw some of it on the video, but these reserve officers, they certainly recognize the need to be a part of our community and the needs of our community. We currently have 106 reserve officers and 12, who you will see in a little bit, in the academy right now. These are dedicated public servants who have chosen to put their lives on the line as sworn peace officers, and they're volunteers while continuing in their chosen careers. They have full authority to serve and protect. They go through the same rigorous hiring and training and are held to the same standards as their career officer counterparts. They're volunteers, but they're still 100% police officers. Reserve officers work right alongside career officers with no outward distinction that would make them look different than any sworn police officer. Many retired career officers have also transitioned to reserve status, which allows the department to retain their valuable expertise. Reserve officers both supplement the day-to-day operational needs and serve as a ready force for disasters, emergencies, or other special assignments. It's very unique that Phoenix Police Reserve officers are state-certified, full-authority police officers, just like career police officers. Some other cities and jurisdictions have reserve forces. However, many departments use volunteers as civilian posse members or auxiliary officers who are not state-certified and full-authority police officers like ours are. And you look at the savings when you talk about the budget or the city's needs. 2016 to 17, 34,308 police hours from the reserves, a value of over $2.4 million. And since 2007, reserves have donated more than 365,000 hours, valued at more than $21 million. So for us, our foundation, it's important that we raise money and that we provide resources for the reserves. Our foundation supports these officers with equipment and technology, training, recruitment, crime prevention, neighborhood and traffic safety, and public safety programs. We couldn't be more proud to help there. And we certainly couldn't do it without the support of our city leaders. And so now we're going to hear from our first, and he is going to speak on the Centennial with a proclamation. Once again, my good friend, our mayor, Greg Stanton.
Thank you. Thank you, Derek, for that introduction. Your leadership as chair of the board of this awesome program of the City of Phoenix, the Reserve Program, 100 years of service. Incredible. Derek, I'll put it in terms you understand. Who was the leading home run hitter in Major League Baseball in 1918? Oh.
We know who it is.
Somebody named Babe Ruth with 11 home runs. He picked it up a few years later. He had 54. Who was the leading hitter?
Cobb. What'd you say?
Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb. All right, Ty Cobb, 100 years. So just to put it in perspective, how far Major League Baseball has come and how far our Phoenix Police Department has come, and this incredible program, 100 years of service of a program that when you describe it to most people, it seems too good to be true. Who does this? Who sacrifices themselves in the way that our reserve officers do, give up their time, risk their lives, all for no pay, an incredible act of service to the citizens of Phoenix. And I, Councilwoman Stark is here, we are a grateful city council. It is truly an honor to be here today to celebrate this 100 years of service to our community by these incredible police officers. Yeah, on May 17th, 1918, then Mayor Pete Korpstein formally recognized our first volunteer police force, the Phoenix Police Reserves. Since its inception, the Reserve Division of the Phoenix Police Department has become a model for other reserve organizations around our country. The Phoenix Police Reserve Program, it's important. It's important to our police department, and of course, equally important is the board. Derek, you, Don Brandt, and the other leaders of the Reserve Board. Thank you for your continuing efforts to raise awareness and money for the Phoenix Police Reserves. I am very grateful for your dedication and passion. For the last century, the Phoenix Police Reserves have diligently served and protected the residents of Phoenix without a single dime of pay. Even though these officers receive no compensation, they are dedicated their service to the people of our community. Reserve officers, as was stated in the video and by Derek, are full authority, sworn police officers. They go through the same rigorous training program, perform the same job duties as career police officers. They are an incredibly important supplement to the police department's daily operational capabilities. Currently, we have 106 reserve officers, 12 reserve police recruits in the academy with the Phoenix Police Department. They are diverse in age, ethnicity, experience. They represent so many wonderful professions: professors, physicians, small business owners, faith leaders, commercial airline pilots, military members, of course, some retired Phoenix police officers, those who are looking to make a difference in our community outside their primary careers. And each of them is important, and they play an important part of our team, and they are our everyday heroes. So, as mayor, on behalf of our city council, to the police reserves who are here today, to the Phoenix Police Foundation Board, to our great police chief, Jerry Williams, who's with us here today, and members of the Phoenix Police Department, I say thank you. Thank you for your service. And one of the fun things I get to do as mayor is make things official in the form of proclamations. So it is my honor as the mayor of the city of Phoenix. I won't read the entire proclamation. You can read it later if you want. But to make it official that today is officially the Phoenix Police Reserve Day in the city of Phoenix in honor of 100 years of service to the people of the city of Phoenix. Congratulations to each and every one of you. And the final thing, of course, is to the families of our reserve members. These reserve officers couldn't do what they do without supportive families. Many of you probably thought they were crazy when they came home and announced they wanted to become a reserve officer. Thank you for supporting these incredible people. So this today is honoring the officers and their families. Let's get on with the show.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to thank the Phoenix Suns. Ralph, thank you for having us here. This is a great setting. And by the way, our Suns hired a great coach, so we're very excited about that. And we just had a game. First time that we have lost 2 in a row. But we didn't lose the series. We split with those Dodgers. It's a family show. I had to watch what I would say there. And they didn't give me a very good anniversary gift. Today is my wife and I are celebrating our 26th anniversary, which, yes, thank you. So don't be offended when I sneak out of here. Next up to speak about the value of reserve officers, all of our reserve police officers, is our great police chief, Jerry Williams. Chief?
So good evening, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here, as the mayor mentioned, to this milestone event, 100 years of service to our community. We can't do what we do without the support of our elected officials, so thank you too so much for being here and for your support, as well as the support of city management, Ed Zerker and Milton Dehoney. So to the Reserve Foundation board members, would you do me a favor and please stand? If you are a member of the Reserve Foundation board, stand. Thank you. These are the folks who make sure the reserve program stays alive and well and financially secure and able to provide services. So thank you all so much for what you do. The next thing I'm going to do is ask all of our reserves to stand. So all y'all stand. I know for some of you it's going to take a little bit. Ernie, it's going to take you a little bit to stand up. This is what your Reserve Bureau looks like in this city of Phoenix, everybody. So thank you so much. I'm looking out and I see people that I used to work for out there, so I can make fun of some of you all. So thank you so much. And Ernie, I just always mess with you anyway because you're just adorable. So could I ask the families of the reserves to stand up, because you allow them to come out and serve this city and serve the community. So if you are a spouse, family member of a reserve, stand up. Thank you all so much for entrusting us to share your family member with us. I just want everyone to know, the reserves and the families, that we have the recruits here. Hi, reserve recruits. You guys want to stand up? Stand up. Woo! Thank you. So this is the next wave or next generation of reserve officers, and they spend their Saturdays, and I mean they are grueling Saturdays, really working through the process of becoming officers. So we just want you all to know that we value you enough to be here, to be present, to work alongside with you and with you. As it was mentioned in the video, folks don't know the difference between reserves and career officers out there on the streets, and they really don't care. And they really shouldn't care, because you all are providing the level of service that we need to have in our community, and we're blessed to have you. You family members of the reserves know that it takes a special person to be a police officer, first of all. But to be a police officer and not get paid to do it takes an extra special angel with like little wings or something. So we're really happy about that. As everyone knows, our top priority is hiring, and you all fill a gap and a void that's allowing us to continue to provide the services that we need to provide to the city of Phoenix on a routine and regular basis, and being professional about it. So in closing, I have a shameless plug. So you will find these flyers. I think that the little catchy phrase is really cool. So protect and serve, become a reserve. Sounds kind of corny, but it works, right? So if you are not a reserve, here's the challenge today. Become a reserve officer, or if you can't, give this to someone else and have them come through the ranks and be a part of one of the best police departments in the country. God bless you all. Stay safe out there. And Derek, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. We are lucky to have you, that's for sure. Dynamic. Next up, to speak about supporting our foundation is the Vice President of our foundation board, but more importantly, every day, we know him as a very generous community member, and he is the Chief Executive at APS in Pinnacle West, my good friend, Don Brandt.
Thank you all, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. Derek and I do a lot of community events, and I have generally a standing rule: I don't follow Hall. Now I have to add Chief Williams to that list, too. She might actually have more energy than you do. But I want to tell you a little bit about the foundation. It's a 501c3 not-profit, i.e. a charity, formed in 2007 with the encouragement and support of the mayor, city council, and city management. The goal of the foundation is to raise funds to support and expand the capability of the reserve officers and to acquire more police equipment. Just a week ago, Derek and I and Scott Finnicle made, along with Chief Williams, a presentation to the city council, and I think the chief said she was prepared to see this organization double, and that would be great for the city. We're all too familiar with the increasing demands on public safety and the limitations of city budgets, both here in Phoenix and it's everywhere. And they need our support now more than ever. And contributions to the Reserve Foundation allow us to invest in the equipment and technology, recruitment, specialized training, neighborhood safety, school safety, and crime prevention. And the list, I could go on and on. And the foundation board's made up of business and community leaders who are passionate about public safety and supporting those who keep the city safe. This group understands the fiscal challenges facing the city, and we recognize our opportunity to step up and leverage our resources and contributions. And you see on the easels here, I'll call it the usual suspects, that are just too generous and willing to support. Now, how about a round of applause for all of them? Just to share with you a few of the examples of where the financial support goes, is the foundation has purchased Tahoes for the exclusive use of reserve officers at a value of about $400,000. We've provided portable radios from Motorola valued at $335,000, Panasonic Toughbook computers and docking stations valued at $50,000, uniforms and other equipment of about $25,000. In sum total, the foundation's raised and distributed a little over $825,000. As Derek and the mayor and the chief, made statements, I mean, it's really too good to be true for the city and the citizens of Phoenix and for the metropolitan area. But I personally think there's even of greater benefit than the free services of fully qualified police officers. I like to tell my own employees, you are our best ambassadors. And I know every, full-time police officer is an ambassador, but when you've got reserve officers, whether it's Scott Finnicle at Fenimore Craig, or the doctor here in his emergency room, or the other 104 members of the reserve unit, you've got ambassadors out there that are integrated in the business community and all kind of lines of work. And I'll guarantee in those organizations, everybody at Fenimore Craig or in that emergency room knows more about the roles and responsibilities and what police officers do in our community. And it can't do anything but bring great value. If you'd like to become a supporter of the Phoenix Police Reserve Foundation, there are these donation cards, either yourself or individual basis, or if your employer would be interested in supporting us, we'd greatly appreciate it. And I urge you to consider how you can contribute to this critical mission. Thank you for your time.
There is no greater company here locally when it comes to giving back to the community than APS, and no greater individual who makes an impact more than Don Brandt. Thank you, Don, for your continued support. Next up is our closer, and we could have used him today when we had a 2-1 lead in the 8th. We certainly could have used him, but he is going to speak about our great police reserve officers, and that is our Assistant Police Chief, Scott Finnicle, our fearless leader.
Thank you very much, Derek, and good afternoon. It's my privilege to stand here today and represent our 106 reserve officers and our 12 recruits that are going through the grueling academy, because we are all very fortunate for the leadership and the support, not only of the city and our elected leaders and our managers and the police department, but the community, all of you people here in the room. Our officers are very fortunate to have that kind of support, and examples of what the foundation has done include those 2 Tahoes parked in front of the arena. So the foundation makes real critical donations that allow our men and women to provide more public safety services on the street. So I am incredibly thankful, and we are very, very thankful for the support that we've all received over the years. As we prepared for today's event, we researched a little bit about the storied history of the Phoenix Police Reserve, and we learned some very interesting things that, frankly, as a 34-year member of the police department, I didn't know myself. We prepared in connection with this event a Centennial anniversary booklet. And in fact, here is the cover of the booklet, which you will find on our website, which details the history of the Phoenix Police Reserve starting in 1918 through the present day. And we were very fortunate to have the donated services of Owens Harkey, a national media company, and Sirius Graphics that produced this wonderful book for us that you will be able to see on our website. Interestingly, when the reserve was first formulated in 1918, it was a little more militaristic than it is today. They were organized in companies that would actually go out on deployments throughout the city. One of the companies was made up almost exclusively of Shriners. Another company was made up of the Knights of Pythias, which at the time was another fraternal organization in the city. And something that I didn't know, one of the companies was made up of employees of the Pacific Gas and Electric Company. At that time in the 1918s, all of those officers were armed with Springfield rifles, which they personally purchased on their own. So we've developed to a little more higher technology with tasers and semi-automatic handguns, but that's how they patrolled the streets of Phoenix. In addition, we had special police officers in the 40s after World War II, which then morphed into our reserve officers today. They were required to work in traffic cars or criminal cars, all on a volunteer basis. Two of the notable special police officers included Harry Rosenzweig, a name that probably many of us remember, and Paul Fannin, who then came to become governor of the state of Arizona. So it was well supported by business people even back in the 40s and the 50s. One of our significant leaders over the years was Sam Lebo, who joined the police department in 1962. And he was actually promoted to chief of the reserves by then Chief Wetzel in 1968. And we are very pleased to have in the audience today Sam's son, Larry Lebo, his wife, and some family members. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to please stand and let us say thank you for Sam's incredible commitments. Thank you for coming. As the mayor mentioned, our police department and our reserve division has really become a model around the country. We often have police departments, some of them bigger than the Phoenix Police Department, that actually visit us in Phoenix to learn how we deploy our reserve officers, how we train our recruits, so that they can go back to their cities and model their programs after ours. I'm incredibly proud and pleased of that type of accomplishment. And one final thing before I give you an opportunity to hear from just a few of our officers. As a group, our reserve officers are incredibly dedicated. Some of them have donated more than 40 years of service as a reserve police officer. Some of them have donated more than 25,000 hours of police services to our community. And in fact, some of our officers donate more than 1,000 hours a year as a reserve police officer. Those of you that keep track of statistics, a fully paid career officer works 2,080 hours a year. We have some reserve officers that are literally working half-time on a volunteer basis. It's now my pleasure to just give you an opportunity to hear from a couple of our reserve officers who actually do the job and do the work on the street. I'd first like to introduce Officer Simon Keaton, who works uniform patrol in the South Mountain Precinct, and I'm going to have Simon stand if he would. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chief. You guys hear me okay? All right, great. So thanks for coming. I just want to spend a few minutes introducing myself, talk a little bit about what I do full-time, a little bit about what I do for the police department, and some of the experiences I've had, which are very familiar to all those that wear the uniform and wear the badge. So once again, my name is Simon Keaton, and as a full-time job, I work at a local semiconductor company in town where I'm a senior vice president responsible for about $1 billion a year, and I manage a group of people across Europe and the U.S. and Asia. And as the chief mentioned, for the police department, I primarily work patrol out of the South Mountain Precinct. I've been doing that for about 5 years, and along with patrol, I've done some side activities with the gangs unit, with the NET squad, with the Major Offenders Bureau, or FADE, and with SAU, which is the Phoenix Police equivalent of the SWAT team. And two very different jobs and roles and responsibilities. And the questions I get a lot from people that don't really understand it is, why do you do this, and then what do you do? So I'll try and answer those questions as best I can for those in the audience that aren't terribly familiar with what we do. The why, I think, is common whether you're a reserve or a full-time officer. At the end of the day, there's this common theme of you've got to want to help people. So at the end of the day, that's what we do. We answer phone calls, we answer calls for service, and people have a problem, and we need to solve that issue. So you have to demonstrate a need and a desire to help people. I think you need to have a certain need for a challenge. It's a tough job. Everything's different every single day. And I think one of the most rewarding things about it is you need to bring the best version of you to the job. This job, to be a really good police officer, you need to be mentally and physically ready to go every day. It just is demanded of you in this function. So I'll tell you a little bit about, that's the why I do it, which I think is common, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we do, because I've been asked questions, hey, you're a reserve officer, does that mean you write tickets and you do traffic control? Okay. Yeah, we do that, but we do a lot more than that. We're just regular cops at the end of the day, and I think we get to see the human experience on a very clear and very close level on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to go through a few of the experiences that I've had over the past 5 years, and I can guarantee you, and I'd encourage you, talk to any one of these officers that you're seated next to, and they will have similar experiences and stories to tell you. So just a few of the highlights, if you will, of some of the things that I've seen. So foot pursuits. I've been in a foot pursuit down 19th Avenue and Baseline in rush hour at full speed to go track somebody down. And I got him. That way I don't have to give pizza to the rest of the guys. I've had a call, and this was a tough one when I was a new reserve. I pulled a baby out of a car, and he'd been in there for 4 hours or so. And it was 110 degrees, and I stood by. And we got into the hospital, and I stood by the parents when they were told that he wasn't going to make it. I've talked to several suicidal people, people with guns at their head and knives at their throat. And we've talked them down, and I've talked them to put the gun down, and it's scary, right? At the end of the day, they've got a gun at their head, I've got a gun on them, and you're thinking, okay, if it comes towards me, do I pull that trigger? When do I pull it? And thankfully, I haven't had to do that. Been in a few fistfights. The last one, not very amusing story, by the way, but I'll tell you the full details later. I got into a ground fight with somebody. I got cut up, got scratched up, managed to arrest this guy, and he was kind enough to tell me after the fact that he has Hep C. And so he told me after that, so I had to get tested for Hep C and HIV the other year. So that was an interesting conversation with my wife about a week later after that, so we went through that. I was on scene, this is a little over a year ago, with the two sergeants that were shot at 36th Avenue and McDowell. So I was first on scene with them. I was about 20 to 30 yards away. We were walking down a breezeway. I could see them. We got separated by buildings. And then gunfire erupts, and I mean a lot of gunfire. And I'm running like a madman over there. It's just a strange experience when you're running towards gunfire, and you just don't know what you're going to get, all right? So it's not like my typical job. At the end of the day, yeah, I've arrested many people. I've given warnings often, and respect always. And I think that is true for all of us. The situation dictates what the situation is. I've had days where I get handshakes and hugs, and I've got days when I've got to go to extreme violence. And you do everything in between, and that's just part of the job. These stories that I'm telling you, I'm no different than anybody else. People have got better stories than I do, but we all share that common experience, and I think that's what gives us the bond that really puts us together. Just to wrap up, it really is an honor and a privilege to wear this uniform and to wear this badge. I'm thankful every single time I have the opportunity to do so. I do want to say thank you to the Reserve Foundation. You've allowed me to do this. The equipment that you provide for us allows me to go on the street and do this job and get the job done. And we take great pride in that, and thank you for helping us with that.
Thank you, Sergeant. Officer Mark Molson works uniform patrol in the Mountain View Precinct. Mark?
Yeah, I'm Officer Mark Molson. I do work in Mountain View Precinct. By day, I am an issues manager for a Fortune 100 global technology company. So when I put on this uniform, I'm just dealing with different issues on a whole different level. The reason why I joined the reserves is pretty simple. My dad served in the United States Air Force for 25 years. My sister graduated from the United States Air Force Academy. My mom was an English teacher, and then after she retired, she gave her time teaching special needs kids. So you could say that it was ingrained in me to give back in some way. The Phoenix Reserve Department is the way that I chose to give back, and it's been an extremely rewarding process. You know, I don't have as many stories as the other officer. I haven't been on as long. I'm still an officer in training. So what that means is I drive around with a field training officer and learn the ropes, understand what it is to be a patrol officer. Same sort of training that a full-time officer does. Same calls. The calls that I've been on, again, have been very rewarding. I've been able to talk to a young lady who was suicidal and was able to remind her that she has a kid, that she has a life, that even though she was engaging in crime, she was doing it to try to take care of her son, and that taking her life obviously would not allow her to continue to be a good mother. I got involved in my first foot pursuit, which sounds really, really exciting until I tell you it involved a 10-year-old kid. But I caught him. The end of that story is that this young gentleman was actually an immigrant from Africa. He'd only been in the United States for about 3 months. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not completely familiar with how African immigrants view law enforcement. So this little kid had been separated from his family. He'd actually been beat up. He'd lost his bike. And so we were able to spend 2 or 3 hours talking with him and trying to get him reunited with his family, which eventually we were able to do. I'd also like to thank the Reserve Foundation for the amazing support and all the equipment that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Officer Trish Knudsen is a retired career police officer who, after a very distinguished career, transitioned to become a reserve police officer, and she now works in our Special Assignments Unit, which you've heard described as SWAT. Trish?
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Trish Knudsen. I'm a little bit different on my story that I tell. I came from the career side after 17 and a half years as an officer out on the street. My career ended early, unfortunately. The majority of my time that I spent on the police department on the career side was spent on our Special Assignments Unit, our SWAT team. In 2013, though, I was involved in a gunfight, and I sustained an injury which ended up being a career-ending injury, a gunshot wound to the leg. So that was over, that side was over for me. I couldn't go out and be an active officer out on the street anymore, which was heartbreaking because for me, I was at the epitome of my career. So in 2015, I transitioned over to the Reserve Division. And for me, when I left being an active officer out on the street, there was a lot of boxes that were left unchecked for me. I had goals. I had aspirations for things I wanted to achieve before I retired. So I had a lot of things that were left undone. When I transitioned over to the Reserve Division, it checked a lot of those boxes for me. In a different capacity, though. I can't be the officer out there. It was a leg injury, so I still tip over occasionally without alcohol or someone pushing me. So that's not a good thing for an officer out on the street. But the Reserve Division, what it's allowed me to do is to give back in a way of training. I'm a huge fan of giving back to the community, giving back to our department. And that's what the reserves have done for me, allowed me that opportunity. And it's allowed me the opportunity to give back in a way that's near and dear to my heart. And if I may expand, I teach training along with another reserve member who is also a career officer on downed officers. What to do when something happens to an officer and they're down on the street, if they're suffering from a gunshot wound, if they've been hit by a car. Things that we can do immediately right there when we show up on scene. Or to a civilian. I'm allowed the opportunity to teach and to give back to our officers so that they're better prepared when they hit the street. Unfortunately, fortunately, I can give both perspectives, being down on the ground, being injured, and then also what to do for that officer or for that civilian. So for me, it's a huge win-win. I get to continue my career as an officer in a different capacity, though. So for the reserve program is huge. It's huge, and it allows, my story is, it has allowed me the opportunity to keep giving to our community, to keep giving back to our department. And I'm very fortunate and I'm very appreciative of that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Trish. And finally, we have Sergeant in Training Scott Stout, who is a former reserve officer who then transitioned to become a career officer. He is soon to be promoted to the rank of sergeant, and he currently works uniform patrol in the Maryvale precinct. Scott?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chief. And before I get started, just want to get one more round of applause for Trish Knudsen. She is the real deal. The things she's done in this department are second to none on a lot of levels. So, my story is very similar to Mark and Simon's. I started off as what you would term a traditional reserve. I did 20 years in the private sector, and at the end of my time, I was a director level of a large building products company based in Washington, D.C., and some offices around the country. But what happened was I just thought, hey, I've got a pretty comfortable station in life here, and being a police officer is something that I always wanted to do, and this is my way of kind of living my dream through the reserves, and that's exactly what it was. And I started doing, it was about 1 week in a month, and I found that every time I took this uniform off on a Saturday night, I couldn't wait to put it back on again on Friday. So 1 weekend a month turned into 2, into 3, into every weekend, and then weekends turned into 2 or 3 days, and it just so on from there. And a few years ago, the city gave a few reserves the opportunity to transition, and that was a big decision for my wife and I. Where we're going to go with this love of the uniform and the service that I had, and decided that now was a time to live the life that I was meant to lead. And the reason I think it's important, I think the reason why the chief had me here is I wouldn't have had the opportunity to make that transition without the reserves. The city and the mayor, the chief, and of course the foundation and their Herculean effort to keep this program running. And then of course all of you folks, you're the reason that we're all here today. And for me personally, it's a debt that I can never truly repay. I wouldn't have been able to just kind of throw my 20-year career up in the air and join the police academy at that given time. It would be irresponsible. But the reserves gave me an opportunity to come in, work as an officer, and then make that transition a little bit better. So it's greatly appreciated from my point of view. And I'll tell you, I just want to really say that the thank you goes out to everyone that I've already listed, but what you people do here and your support, whether it's financial for our vehicles or for equipment or training or whatever, a little piece of you comes with all of us on every call. And that's really the truth. We couldn't be there and doing those things without you. So for 100 years of support of all the folks in this room, and specifically from the bottom of my heart, me and my family, what you've given me the opportunity to do, I just want to say thank you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. And finally, as Chief Williams mentioned, I'd like to introduce our current class of recruits, Class R70, who began their training in February of this year, and they will complete their training in November of this year after 9 months of training to be sworn in as full authority police officers. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of the organization.
Right. Forward, march.
finally, I'd like to thank, and many of you met these wonderful young people here today. We have many police cadets and some cops volunteers here that support and work for the police department. And with regard to the cadets, will soon be joining the police academy and becoming police officers themselves. So thank you to all of the cadets and the cops volunteers. Finally, I would just like to thank all of you for taking your time from your busy schedules to join us. This milestone and celebration will remain a special memory in our hearts and our minds for a long time. This concludes our ceremony. I invite you to hopefully stay and mingle a little bit with some of our reserve police officers, past and present, some of their families, and enjoy the hors d'oeuvres and the wonderful Centennial cake, all compliments of the foundation. And finally, I hope to see everybody at the next bicentennial anniversary in 2118. So thank you very much for coming.